Hello, welcome to In Frame. I'm Dan Lewis Sanab. I'm here with Salomon Ligthelm, David Michael Alexander, Bozos, and I'm here with our guest, Bradley Credit, cinematographer. Welcome. I said we were gonna do a round of applause.
Wow, I didn't even know that was out of that.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Matria Rentals. Shit, I did that.
In Frame, fucking nigga.
All right, guys. Welcome to In Frame. I'm David Lewis Sanab. I'm here with Salomon Ligthelm, David Michael Alexander, and we have our special guest here today, cinematographer Bradley Credit.
Woo!
Welcome. Welcome.
Third time's a fucking charm.
Yes, thank you,
God
Ken.
damn.
And also we got Emmett and Ken in the background. We got Emmett working the magic with the cameras, and Ken working the magic with this great sound. Really excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start off real quick with what we were just piggybacking on.
So you think fucking Dune 2 is the best movie of the year? You think fucking Dune 2 is the best movie of the year? That's crazy.
All right, I've been taken out of context. Dune 2 is one of my favorite films of the year. But like my top, if I'm having like a top three, it's La Chimera, A Different Man, and then Dune 2.
Wow,
that
top three.
That's
Dune
a good.
2.
That sounds.
I haven't seen the first two. I
haven't seen La
Chimera.
La Chimera.
I actually don't even know how to properly say it. Like
I think La Chimera, but then
like the
if you're gonna like a movie, know how to pronounce it.
It's a dragon, right? Like Chimera, like it's like a Greek
Chimera, like diffusion.
Yeah, no, but it's based off a thing. Yeah, it's actually funny. Yeah, Chimeras for lightning.
That's probably why it's my favorite film, just off the name alone.
Wow, yeah, it's fire name.
It's phenomenal.
I really like that actor. I think
Josh O'Connor.
Yeah, he's in what I think is the best movie of the year.
Challenges.
Yeah, Challenges. Great movie. I'm gonna do a podcast about that eventually.
I'm glad you feel that way. I generally like resonate like very strongly with kind of just more patient framing, a slower pace, and not kind of like injecting camera moves to engage the audience. It's just like my own personal thing. And so I think even though like I enjoyed Challengers for some of those reasons, because it was so dynamic and it was fun and everything, but it's also just like it was just a bit much to me at times.
Give me an example of like what slow cinema, like what started for you? What was the film of in terms of that genre?
Probably, I think there's two. There was the first time I saw Quizhpi and Taste of Cherry, especially Taste of Cherry. But there's like a number of films. I think it's generally kind of just like as I got more into like watching a variety of just like European filmmakers and kind of different perspectives that they were taking. Like, I mean, Kiarostami obviously is Iranian, and so he's not European, but like that slower pace and that kind of just more refined like observation of not just like the character, but like the world that they live in. Because I think it just resonates for me in terms of like how I think, not just about cinema, but just about like memory and like life in general is just kind of like the smaller like vignettes that sort of make the world that you're like present in. Yeah. Whether it's like they're holding on just like a tree blowing in the breeze and like you're hearing dialogue in the background and you're just hearing like the sound of like the breeze blowing through. Like to me, that is just like such a strong representation of life. And I think that's something that I resonate with a lot more than just like throwing crazy camera moves into the mix, even though like I still love that too. Because it's like I came up on like old Hollywood films and kind of things that had that like very strong, heavy-handed visual style. And so I feel like there's still a place for that I enjoy, but at least like more recently I've resonated more with just like a slower pace, slow cinema. So
that's the beautiful thing about the visual language and iconography in cinema is that there's directors like Eric Rohmer. Like when you mention European slow cinema, I think he's like a great example of like
like French New Wave. And just kind of that,
he just kind of like lets the camera hang on wides of people sitting on park benches, and you could feel like he makes movies that are like very, they're very sensual and they're about people in marriages or people in relationships that make choices.
Yeah, I think there's just like there's beauty in simplicity. Yeah, and just sort of like stripping things back, and just like letting the writing, letting the acting, letting the environment, the production design, all those things that are in front of the lens just like kind of carry the story along rather than like trying to throw other things into the mix that can like that are also there to engage the audience but can also sometimes overwhelm the audience. And so I think for me at least that's kind of how I like have been thinking about cinema lately. Even like with my own projects and stuff that I've been working on, I was just like how heavy-handed do we need to go? Like, do we need to move the camera? Sometimes you just don't. And so I love a crane shot, but when it's like 2 hours of crane shots and orbits and stuff, I'm like, okay.
Is that Challenges?
And like
2
bumping
hours of
techno.
crane
I
shots?
love house music.
Challenges is not that.
It's 2 hours of crane shots.
It's like big swoops and everything, and it's like stunning. It's visually great. I think it's just like, and I love house music too. So I mean, even though it's not all house music, it's a lot of techno, but it's just like it's a long party, which is cool. But it wasn't the vibe I was on.
The movie
is not for you.
I'm not gonna lie.
That's fine.
My Spotify Wrapped was for this year.
Oh yeah, my Spotify Wrapped was all over the place.
It was a Challenger soundtrack.
Yeah, same. It was fucking awesome.
No,
but I'm gonna.
I had Hans Zimmer in like my top 5.
Yeah.
But he was in there with Future.
Wow.
I'm gonna defend Challengers to a hill because like I think Luca's like a director that I admire because he really knows how to mix the flourishes, and a lot of his movies tap into like, I won't say taboos, but there's a lot of naysayers of the movie. A lot of the criticism was revolving around the sexual innuendos of the film.
Yeah. Which is just like, that's Luca's like body
That's
of
his
work.
thing, yeah. Suspiria's the same way.
I love Luca's work because it's so versatile. Like he can just kind of...
Yeah.
He did Bones and All.
Yeah,
right?
Bones and All.
I love Bones and All.
Call Me By Your Name.
That's like biggest hit.
Yeah, but like there's like definitely like there are themes around like human sexuality that he touches on throughout like all of his films, but like in different ways. Like even like, I mean, Bones and All is crazy because it's just like I
just love
like
that he took
sexuality within the form of like cannibals, which is which is I mean,
he's
maybe
actually
a step past taboo, but
he's actually a really good genre filmmaker.
And he works so much as well, which I really admire.
2 movies in the year. He's doing American Psycho
he's doing
remake.
a show too.
Well, he really is. I don't know. The past, like I think after Call Me By Your Name, he kind of took like a hiatus.
He has a hot streak right now.
But he
like
took a hiatus.
He's like the knee high. Like they're both working.
But
pretty much constantly.
It's interesting. Like after Call Me By Your Name, he took a little hiatus. There wasn't really much. I didn't really hear his name in the sphere. And then I think recently, Bones and All. What was before Bones and All? He did something big. Or did
it was
he not?
all
I forget.
the show. No, Suspiria.
That was the
Suspiria. It was Call Me By Your Name, and then he started doing the series, the HBO one. We Are Who We Are. It's a great series, but it doesn't have a great ending.
Now, this year, like his name is, and then last year with Bones and All, like his name is just like popping all over the place. And then Challengers obviously put him back on the map again.
Queer looks like,
and I know people
like the movie where he's gonna go out there because there's like certain frames that I'm seeing in the trailer where you got fucking like slow motion, like not slow motion, stop motion stuff happening. Like he's kind of like touching like on the Boy Is Afraid thing. Where have you seen Boy Is Afraid? There's like Ari Aster.
Yeah, isn't Bo Is Afraid? I heard that, so I didn't seen it, but I heard.
I saw Bo Is Afraid.
I heard it was crazy.
It's
crazy, right?
It was forgettable though. No one talks about it anymore.
It wasn't.
Yeah, no one really.
I think I'm gonna go off on a.
You weren't a fan.
I think that's a movie that people are gonna talk about 20 years from now, though.
Bo Is Afraid.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be like a place for it. I feel just like how I feel like there's gonna be a place.
I think it's a cult movie for sure.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a place for Challengers 20 years from now.
There's a place for Challengers now.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, people
I
are
really
talking
don't think
about
so.
it.
No,
People are not talking about it.
We're talking about it right now.
But they don't.
Yeah, because we both love it.
But the reason people talking about Challengers is really like, I feel like everyone that I've spoken about has a very big misconception about what Challengers is about. They focus a lot on the, like you said earlier, the sexuality of it. And I've spoken to people that are like around my age, younger, and people that are older. And people around our age and are older really just have been around for so long that they're really have this ingrained belief of monogamy, right? And that we have to be monogamous, and that sexuality is just like one big, just like one thing. It's like you have to like one person, and that's it. So I feel like people really looked at that and it's about cheating, and I don't like the message that it's sending. But I'm like, it's not really about that. It's really about like desire and how complicated what motivates us to want to succeed and be successful. And sometimes things that motivate us to do certain things, other people might not agree upon. Like what's his name, Mike
Feist, yeah.
Mike Feist, right? Like his true motivation was that he always had to be competitive with Patrick. And he needed someone that would say, if you don't do this, then I don't want to be with you. He needed that tough love.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Patrick was someone that was super talented, but he was very stubborn, and he didn't really know how to like just continue his path.
He didn't know how to work the game.
He didn't know how to work the game, and Zendaya was in between both of them, showing like, oh, this guy is fulfilling one aspect of my life, and this other guy is fulfilling my other aspect. And I feel like that's just like what desire is in real world. Like, we sometimes want something, but then we're torn because we want something else. We're never truly like satisfied. And I feel like that movie really explored that really profoundly and really well, and even with the editing and like the camera movement. And I understand your point that like, I feel like your philosophy is more of like the camera is more of an observer, and it's not as omniscient or omnipotent or dynamic, which I feel like there it was, because I feel like emotions and desire as human beings is very dynamic. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like as humans, we really want to be like, I really want to do this thing, but secretly we also know we all have our doubts about wanting something or wanting something more, you know? And I feel like that's what Challengers did for me, because it like, visually, like it really made me feel that, because I'm like, I feel like I felt this way in life, like about like a career. Is it like, is this something I really want to do? Like I really love it, but then a part of me is also like, I'm pulled towards something else, because it has something else that it gives me. So it's like, how do you find that balance?
You could even say Dune has the same like meaning.
That was a hell of a way to break it down.
No, it is. But that's why, because I think people were uncomfortable watching that movie with that thought, and I felt uncomfortable too. But for like the reasons I felt like the movie was trying to convey, like we've all like there's a yin and yang. Yeah, and the two guys, I will argue, were more in love with each other.
Yeah,
than they were of the game itself. But the game was exactly what basically evoked that relationship, right? Yeah. And I feel like Dune has the same kind of idea of like he has to choose between, and I'm also like I might be talking out my ass with Dune, but like with Dune, it's like he has to choose between the people, but he also has to choose between being like the new ruler, right? Like he has to decide, like, and at the end he ends up becoming like the ruler. The ruler.
Well, the whole fucking thing of him like doing the blue water and shit, and then like, yo, first of all, the way they edited that, in my opinion, was garbage.
It's bad.
Yo, it's just like what out of nowhere. What he takes the thing, he fucking bugs out, and then like, yo, he's like all
he's
seeing.
Like, no, like, he's like,
blue eyes.
He's like, I'm that guy. He's like, you cannot fuck with me, and everyone's like, what?
Do you like Timothy?
Oh yeah, I'm a Timothée Chalamet stan.
I don't know how I feel about him in the movie. I like him in some movies. I don't know if I liked him in Dune.
Funny story. I was an extra when I was a little kid. That's how I tried to get into this game. I did extra work, and I was in the movie called The Adderall Diaries, and I was like a kid in like a schoolyard. It was like I think it was like a kid prison, and the lead for that kid prison, like a juvenile detention, was Timothée Chalamet.
No way.
Before he became very
so
famous.
y'all are homies.
I saw him there. I wasn't homies with him, but I saw him there when he was a little kid, and many years later he becomes the man.
Yeah,
he's
amazing.
the fucking man. I need him on
the least on Al Gaib.
He is the guy.
Yeah.
But
yo, and then how could you fucking pass up Zendaya to fucking the other girl? Like,
but that's just in the lore of Dune.
Yeah,
like,
that's just the lore of Dune.
Yeah, it's not that.
How dare you?
In the book, it's explained more that he does it out of a sense to gain more power.
I get why. The whole the reasoning, like objectively, I get it.
I mean, I think that's one of the things I find like really interesting about it is just like this whole. He's trying so hard to resist the prophecy, like his fate, essentially. And then I think it was one thing that's interesting about it, like the way that I look at it is like you think if you're thinking about fate differently, if you're thinking about it in terms of like how you think about like your goals and like objectives, like things you want to accomplish in your life.
Right.
You can have like these grand ideas of either the things that you're afraid of or the things that you're like motivated by. And you can kind of like through that make all these like little decisions for yourself, like your morals and kind of the things that are like, oh, I'm not going to like fold on this or that or whatever. Yeah. And that's great in theory. But then when you're like in the actual situation where you have to make a decision that you weren't prepared for, or you just weren't prepared, you didn't know it was going to happen at that time. You didn't know if it was going to happen in that way. And then having to like react to that. I think that's something I find really interesting about like that character evolution for him, where he has all these people telling him like what his fate is going to be.
Yeah.
He is actively like throughout the entire first movie is just like, and even most of the second movie is like actively trying to just like push it away and not go down that route. And then just finds himself having to go down that route anyways.
What ends up happening is he falls in love, right? It's like the main. That's like I think the.
Well, no, he doesn't. I mean, he's like
he falls in love with
Zendaya, but really quickly after that little blue fucking potion, he's out of it. Like,
well, it's
but the thing is, like, he didn't even want to go down south because he had all these visions of like what was going to happen if he
but
goes
it was
down
meant
south.
for him
And then
to go.
It was, and he was like, I'm not going, and then it was like, I have to go.
I guess the whole story
I have
is
to make that decision.
The whole story is like destiny has a narrative of itself, and destiny is gonna propel you to go where you need to go, regardless of your personal agenda.
Just like how the destiny was that when I went to go see Dune 2, and I thought I want to like it, I want to be part of the crowd,
guy, bro.
but I couldn't. But I just couldn't.
Your destiny was.
I
Like,
just couldn't like it. Yeah,
I want to switch the topic here. Instead of talking about the movie itself, let's talk about the process of making that movie.
Well,
I will say it is a technical achievement. Like that shit. Working on that
White Lands
movie,
and Diffusion.
I didn't work on that movie, but I can imagine working on that movie.
Lord of the Rings is an achievement.
Yeah.
Lord of
Nah, yo, Dune is fire, bro. The set design, the cinematography.
Return of the King had 10,000 extras. How many extras did Dune have? Or were they all CGI'd?
Like the last few weeks, I've been coming across like these behind the scenes photos on like, Instagram.
The Greg Fraser photos?
Yeah, well, it's frame grabs of like before and after the VFX. And to me, I think that's something that's just so unique because like my VFX work is so limited.
Yeah.
Obviously, in scale, it's like I've not done anything within 10% of that. And so like the idea of kind of like the level of prep that you're doing that then influences like your imagination of like when you're framing something up, for example, like that scene when they're like running through the legs of, I think it was like the spice harvester or whatever, and they're getting like attacked towards the beginning of the movie. And I've read about like Greg doing kind of all these. They spent so much time in terms of just like scouting and trying to follow the path of the sun and stuff, so they can get those shadows that they're like running through and hiding behind and everything. And then you see a behind the scenes photo of like before all the VFX, and it's just like a crane holding this like giant solid essentially, or like holding like one of the legs that they ended up building out, and then the after photo of all the VFX, and it's like this whole thing has been built out for this huge like massive like wide vista. And it's like to be able to do that amount of prep, but then also to like have the thought of like you're looking at that frame where it's like you literally only have maybe like 20% of the final image there on the negative, and then filling it in with the rest of like the 80%. But knowing like, okay, all these things are going to be like filled in, like that amount of like, not just like understanding of what you're making, but like the trust of all the filmmakers that are around you that are either like on set, but also the people who are like in post, who are doing the VFX and everything. It's just like,
there's like stages to it, and you need to be able to visually see it. You need to see it before, you need to see it during, because you're not going to see it all the way during, and you need to see it in the post world once it becomes the thing.
And I think that that kind of speaks to like another thing that I really appreciate about like listening to him, because I come back to like his interviews a lot and just really admire his philosophy of just like he takes on projects that scare him.
Who, Greg or
Greg?
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting there, I'm like,
takes on projects that pay him a lot of money. I'll
True.
tell you that.
Yeah, true.
And I'll tell you that when there's a $300 million budget, who's gonna say no, homie?
But like that
money
idea
solves everything on that
just
shit.
did Batman, right? Yeah. I mean,
but like that idea,
money solves all your solutions on a film set.
Somewhat.
The 95%, right?
Somewhat. Because it's like, I mean, Roger Deakins is going to be like, you never have enough time, you never have enough money, and it's like we're talking about like one of the.
I would argue that there's a lot of money.
But
I mean, like even look at like Heart of Darkness. Like the whole thing is that the guy had, Francis Coppola had to delay shoot after shoot after shoot.
Let me take back my statement. Money solves most problems on set.
Actually, if anything, big Hollywood movies have more problems half the time. There's always stories about how there's so many delays.
I'm not saying that there's not problems. I'm just saying that a lot of them can be solved by throwing money at them.
I'm sure if you gave Denis more time, he would be
depends on the leadership, on how the money is used.
So if he would have thrown another $200 million to Red One, you said it would have been the best film of all time, basically.
Listen,
you got
a movie
good writer to write Red One.
I'll tell you right now,
and you got fucking Spielberg to direct it. Absolutely,
a movie with a bad script can never be saved.
I also haven't seen
a movie with a bad script can never be saved.
unless you throw a new
No,
script
it can't.
at it.
It's that it just can't. Like you've never seen a
Yeah.
movie with a bad script that's like even Dune. Like you can. There's gonna be the mad Dune heads that would argue that that script is like solidified because it's just
But
telling.
Dune didn't have a bad script.
What?
Dune didn't have a bad
I don't-
script.
I think the script just does what it has to do.
I think it needs
I don't think
work.
it's like a remarkable.
I don't
script.
think it's like a great script, but I definitely think it needs work. Like the first one just feels.
Remember, it's an adapted screenplay.
Exactly.
You
and-
have to
but-
go
but-
off the book.
But that's
Like
but
an
that's what I'm
800
saying.
page
Like,
book.
Crazy.
No, but not every adaptation is
But that's
like
what I'm saying. Like you have the
true to
source
form.
material there, so why not add more details or go even further
But-
in it?
Well, because it's like, I mean, I listened to like an interview that Denny did when
he
was
said
like,
he didn't want it to be like
he
the
didn't
book.
want it to be like a one for one. He wanted it to be like his interpretation of it, like what he came away from.
Should have
Yeah,
changed the white
about
kid
book.
to somebody of color. I would have liked that. I would have honestly.
No, but
I would have liked the movie. I honestly would have liked the movie a lot more.
Timothy sells the movie.
Yeah, but so does.
And when you put a $300 million, I don't know.
Why
the
not put
budget
one of the
Tim.
guys from Nickel Boys in there?
You
I don't
put
know.
a-
Like you put
Nah,
somebody.
when you,
like,
yo, you got to understand when the studio
Put
wants
Michael
to
B.
drop,
Jordan.
Yo,
Yeah, everyone loves Michael B.
stop
Jordan.
right now.
Everyone loves
when
Michael
you
B. Jordan. Why
put a
not put
$300
Michael B.
million
Jordan?
investment, you want that money back,
Why
homie.
not? Why
so
not?
when you get Timothy, you're guaranteeing
when the
the
Lord of
money
the Rings,
back.
when the Lord of the Rings was made, no one
Michael
knew,
B.
no one
Jordan
knew
would've been
Elijah
interesting.
Wood. Well, the people knew Elijah Wood, but he wasn't like Timothy Chalamet of a star. They still fucking
yeah.
like
How do
him.
you explain Lord of the Rings then?
Yeah.
Like
How do you explain Avatar?
That was Orlando Bloom's first role ever. Most of the cast were not known at all. Like who was the woman
I
from?
think back in the day, the studios took a little more risk.
Dave, I'm telling you
a lot
right
of
now,
people don't take
Dune,
risks nowadays.
everyone's wanted Dune to be a thing.
Then talk to Denis.
Since-
to Denis. Why did he choose Timothy? Yo, he is like one of the best directors in the game right now, and he chose
Well, it's the same
one of the
reason-
biggest stars in
It's
the
the
game.
same reason why Scorsese hired him for the commercial. It's like, oh, who's like?
'Cause he's the
Oh, who's on
man.
that list?
Well,
Timothy?
actually, I don't
mean,
think.
is
I
that
don't
not-
think.
He's
the man.
Is that not how filmmaking, like Hollywood?
No, it is. I guess I'm just coming more from a place of like, I just wish directors took more chances in like casting like somebody that's like I don't know.
I
like,
agree.
Like to see Timothy
think we
in
need to
every
take more
form.
risks.
He may want to, but I think that like it then becomes a conversation of like all the other people who are not part of the actual process of like making the movie who have hands in it.
Yeah.
Oh
Like
yeah, no, of
studios
course,
and all
yeah.
that. Yo,
I'm sure the studio has
It's
so
like
much
yeah, you
more.
can pick who you want of this little pot of like
Yeah.
people who we would like you to pick from.
There are some directors though that like from like history serves. There's been some directors that have been given like you're gonna cast these people because they're hot. And they're like fuck that Jack. I'm casting that guy
I
that
know
nobody wants to see right now because he's in fucking
Like
movie
who?
jail. Tarantino does that all the time. I love when he does that where he's like, I'm casting John Travolta. I don't care if you're giving me. For Pulp Fiction they were like, all right, these are the people we want you to cast for Vincent. Dale Day-Lewis, Tom Hanks, right now, go. Do it. And he's like, we're giving you all the money. He's like, no, I want John Travolta. And like, what? The guy from who's talking, baby who's talking?
That was
like,
a time when John Travolta wasn't
he
hot
wasn't.
anymore.
Or it's
right?
like with Marvel, like putting Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man was like a big thing because he was already like coming out of movie
That was
jail.
the
He had
right
just done
call.
Tropic Thunder. Like it was
yeah.
like really the guy that like from Ally McBeal, who
The
we
guy that
haven't
was in
seen
jail,
like decades.
you know,
What?
that was like an addict and was
Yeah,
in jail.
and
You know,
like,
that.
there's a certain.
Yeah.
I mean, but
There's
we're getting
always
really-
people that
Yeah.
will take risks, and sometimes those risks pay off, and I admire that. But when you're working with, I think nowadays society, especially Hollywood, they're really scared to take risks because number one, movies are a lot more expensive to make. Number two, if that money's on the line, they want to mitigate that risk just from an investment perspective.
Yeah.
So when you come across people who do want to take risks, it's very admirable, but those risks don't always like pan out. So it's hard. It's very hard for people to throw a lot of money on a movie and not know if it's going to hit or not, especially when you're throwing controversial shit that people
But it's
don't
easy.
believe
It's
in.
easy to throw money at Pet Detective 2, right? It's like easy. It's easy.
Nah,
It's
but
easy to spend millions of dollars.
I'm gonna say,
The fact that there's a 2, meaning it means that something's working.
Or what
bro.
is it?
Like,
Pet Police? Whatever the fuck? I don't know.
Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
for the kids. I don't know.
I'm actually down to
The kids
see,
these days
I'm
don't
not
know what's
gonna
good
lie,
for them.
I do want to see Sonic the Hedgehog 3. The first 2 were pretty good.
All right,
That's
Bradley,
crazy.
I have a question for you.
Wait,
What-
I want to
go
say
ahead.
something on the. I kind of
You having fun?
Yeah, this is great.
I agree with your statement, but I don't think movies got
Which
more,
statement?
that
That
you
movies that Hollywood has
somewhat.
no balls. Yeah.
No, that you said
Say
that
right
like
now,
movies
Hollywood
are more
got no
expensive
balls.
to make nowadays. I sort of agree with that. I don't think the actual production is more expensive to make movies. I think it's the marketing that got more expensive because back in the day,
No, both.
no.
How so?
Definitely not. Because like right now we live in a time where social media, everyone is very, very niche back in the day, there wasn't as many access to niches where you can go online and be a part of a community and be like, this is what I like, this is what I'm going to stick to. I'm not going to be open to anything else. Back in the day, you had limited marketing availability, which was like what, TV, trailers, like billboards, all that stuff where anyone could see it. So you weren't really tied to a niche, and you would be like open and be like, okay, that's why I feel like you could take a risk with other actors, because there's like, you were just more open to different things in the world because you weren't caught up in your own little world and a little machine that's reinforcing those beliefs.
I think also like we're living in the streaming era.
Yeah.
And that's like, I don't know if necessarily, I kind of agree. I don't think movies are necessarily like more expensive than they used to be, especially because like so many people shoot digitally now, for example, and like film is still more expensive to do, and it was back then as well. And so there's more like, you can do something like The Creator where you're shooting on an FX3 on a gimbal, and it's like you're then able to build out this entire world with VFX because there's so many more resources there. But I think in terms of like doing something, for example, like casting like a Timothée Chalamet rather than like a lesser known actor, it's how can we get people to come to the movie theaters, because there's so many who like post-pandemic or whatever, and just like are thinking, oh, I can just like stay at home and I can like, it's, oh, Dune's going to come out on Max or something, but like how can I get you to go to see it on a big screen?
But what I guess
and there's like certain draws,
it's more of like a, that's from
that.
The filmmaker's perspective, the people that are making the movie, I guess, like, hey, like we need them to go to the theaters. But in the perspective of, we just want people like a person that just wants people to watch the work, what's wrong with watching it at home and then watching it in theater? I get that the filmmaker intended to watch it,
but then because it's like, it's not even
Yo,
just, it's
a
not
lot
even
of
just like
people don't got a lot of time to go to the movies.
I don't think it's even just like
I want
a
to watch
purist.
it at home.
I don't even think it's just like a film
That's a
purist
shame.
thing. I think it's also just like a matter of the survival of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because if you're losing out, because so many companies, for example, tried to keep up with Netflix during the whole like streaming wars, whatever, and lost. And because they're just like, oh, we're not making any money through streaming.
Yeah.
Like Paramount, for example, I mean, like obviously Paramount Plus still exists as a platform, but like if you're going to compare that to Netflix or like MGM trying to kind of compete with a Netflix, like they're not, because they're not making money through streaming, because the way that you've historically made money is getting butts and seats. Because if you have, I mean, tickets are expensive today to go to see a movie. It's like $18, $20.
Yeah, you got to lower those prices if you want people to pull up.
Which is like, that's more expensive than somebody is going to pay per month to have a subscription.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can we get as many people to come and do like a Barbenheimer or a Glickit or something like that?
Yeah, those work. You got to bring back that fucking not the AMC, it's the movie pass. You got to bring that shit back.
Or you just
got
gotta
to bring that shit back. You got to do $10 a month unlimited movies. I mean, AMC does it really well.
AMC does it. I have the AMC Plus. They do it. The problem is that AMC movies, it's just a weird time for movies. Like movies aren't
Well, I think for not even movies, but movie theaters.
Movie
theater experience.
Yeah, the movie
I think
theater
that's why you have
experience
so
is
many like releases in IMAX now.
Yeah.
It's just because like
You want people to
I mean,
go
it's
to this.
like it's a cyclical thing. It's the same way that like when TV was first coming about, they're like, oh, let's do anamorphic because you can't get that aspect ratio like at home. And then it's like, okay, now you can have the aspect ratio at home. How can we draw crowds? The biggest fucking screen you can find.
Yeah.
And like you're not gonna do that at home. So
That's true.
I also think movie theaters are important, especially for our business.
They're definitely important. I'm not saying they're
Yeah.
not important.
But
They're great for
I
movies. They're great.
I love going to the
Movie
movies.
theaters are important though too, especially for movies like Nickel Boys. Because I went to go see Nickel Boys on Thursday at Angelica Film Center, and that's the only theater that's playing it. And when I went there, here at least in New York right now, I went there. It was packed. It's the same with Hard Truths. I went to go see a movie like Hard Truths. What's Hard Truths? Not everyone's going to know what Hard Truths is, but it's a Mike Leigh film. Mike Leigh is an important filmmaker. You go screen a film at a theater like Lincoln Center. What's important are these restoration theaters. These theaters that are not they're not brand theaters. They're not AMCs. They're theaters that are committed to making sure that people are getting to see these movies that are from overseas that have some kind of a cultural significance. A movie like a theater like Film Forum. Film Forum had to be taken down. They had to revitalize it. Then you have movie stars like Ethan Hawke putting money into it, because these theaters are trying to do more than just show you a presentation at this point. They're trying to make the medium survive here. Because it's true, like at the end of the day, like you might see those movies on Netflix, on Prime or whatever, and it's not going to make anyone think twice about it. It's like, okay, let's go see it.
This is also New York. Like, you're gonna get these kind of movie theaters here because there's a little bit of a market for it. What about the rest of the country?
There's
even the
very
rest of the
few.
world,
There's
you
very
know?
few. Like Chicago's got their
It's
thing.
sad.
LA's got their thing for sure. Like it's sad. Like there's not a lot. It's like in the sense it's almost kind of like the same as like video stores at a certain time, right? Where you start to realize like now you have to rely on a stream, and there's some towns that they still have their like little video stores, their local video stores. They still collect certain films that you may never find on stream, or you may have to like dig deep and find out that it's like in a really poor quality and you have to rent it out for $3.99. Like it just the experience of going to movies to finding movies is not far out of our reach, but it's still something that is like relatively new to us because we're not going to the movies often.
Yeah. I think it also is a sense of community. I think it's different when you're watching a film at home by yourself and feeling the impact, but then feeling the impact of others around you.
It's always a better experience.
It's always a better experience.
We can all agree on that.
I mean,
Watching Interstellar was like amazing.
Yeah. Even like I think about that when like we have like if I've done a short and it gets like you see it time and time again, and you're doing like the color grading and everything, and you're like you're familiar with the edit, you're familiar with the beats, you've read the script however many times you've shot the thing, and then you see it in a room, like a dark room with a bunch of like random people, and you hear them laugh at things that you like weren't thinking, oh, I didn't know that was that funny, or whatever.
Like when we went to go see our screening.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That film
it's just like it's a different, it's a wholly different experience of when you're like in a room. Because I saw like Andrei Tarkovsky's last film that he had made a few weeks ago, and like I've seen pretty much any Tarkovsky movie I've just seen at home on like Criterion Channel.
Yeah.
And it's like I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a lot to sort through because of just who he was as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
But then like seeing his last film on a big screen in a packed theater, it's a different experience. Like I'm enjoying I'm appreciating the movie differently.
Yeah,
it's how it was like intended to be seen.
It to be.
Yeah. I mean, that's ideally like whenever you make a film, that's how you would ideally like it to be presented to people.
I gotta see a movie of his in theaters. I imagine people screaming because his movies are so fucking like they're great films. Like, but I just saw The Mirror, and that movie is just like people like losing their fucking minds at their homes, and it's like so like morbid, but like in a very beautiful sense. But it's like I don't know, like a movie packed theater of The Sacrifice playing would make me lose my fucking mind.
Yeah, no,
but no, it's really cool. That's and we need more of those. That's why I really like when Alamo Drafthouse does like or Nighthawk when they do like these Hong Kong like genre screeners on 35 and you go see them and it's like.
But no, like to your point though, like that. We're lucky because we're in like New York, or somebody can be like in LA or like another kind of like. I mean, I'm from DC, and we have a few of those theaters that have like are still around or been popping up, like those independent cinemas. But you go to like the middle of the country, or you go to these other like places,
smaller cities,
where it's like that's you just have like an AMC or a Regal, and that's about it. And so it's like, okay, how are movies going to survive? Like, how are they going to make themselves relevant when like the closest movie theater is a 30-minute drive away, and you can just like watch
they're only playing the
home.
main shit.
So it's like, oh, if somebody likes Timothy Chalamet a whole lot, they're probably gonna be more inclined to get in their car and drive half an hour to go see Dune on a big screen.
There you go, and that's why he was casted.
Yeah, but also,
you could also go because of Josh Brolin. You could go because of
no one's going because of Josh Brolin.
I went for everyone else.
Okay, a few people.
Florence Pugh.
Yo, but like to that point, like Josh Brolin, like I feel like there's also the conversation of like age demographics.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Because if there's a whole idea as well of like, oh, younger people, which to be fair, like younger people are going to the movies more than we've kind of been given credit for.
Yeah.
But it's like if Timothy Chalamet is this like Gen Z icon, probably more inclined to like go see him in a movie theater than a
Josh
20-year-old who like loves Josh
the
Brolin.
youth?
Like, they probably exist,
and
but
it's also escapism. It's also they got the best mix. They got escapism, and then they got like this Gen Z icon right now, and it's gonna be the same with
who also happens to be a great actor.
He's good. He's good. I don't know if he's great.
You think he's great?
I don't know.
I think he's a good actor.
I think he's good.
He's a good actor.
He's good in. He's been good in some. He was good in Interstellar.
It's hard to like.
He was great in Call Me by Your Name. I think he was
great.
Yeah, I mean that's like
he was good.
Army Hammer is coming back. He's trying to come back.
Nah, he's not coming back.
Dude, fuck him.
Yeah,
but he's a very quintessential.
I heard he's trying to come back.
Like I could see his career.
He's got a podcast
going.
As a baking soda.
I could see his career basically being Johnny Depp, but without doing the weird stuff. Now he did Willy Wonka, and that's kind of
I
like
liked Willy Wonka.
All right.
No. You saw Willy Wonka?
Two thumbs way down, Dan.
It was pretty good.
It was fun.
It was fun. It's a good movie. It's actually not bad.
You don't watch any movies this year, but that's the one you want to go see. It's just Willy Wonka.
No,
So
my child's gonna be watching Tarkovsky's.
Didn't you put that in your top 5? Didn't you
Fine.
say Willy Wonka's like your 2 or 1? Right? It's fucking
It's
crazy.
the best movie of the year.
It's insane. But yeah, like
of shit.
I could totally see Timothy's career being like a Johnny Depp if Johnny Depp didn't do like the Tim Burton stuff and he didn't like fucking date Amber Heard. Like I could see him hitting.
Instead,
like,
it's Kylie Jenner.
Like he could do his Finding Neverland.
No, they
he
broke
could
up.
do.
They broke
He
up.
could do
They
his
broke
Donnie.
up?
He
Damn.
dare I say he could even do his Donnie Brasco. He could do these like.
I think it's coming, bro.
It's
I think
gonna
it's
happen.
coming. He's got mentors like Leo. He's got mentors like that telling him to like, yo. I heard there was like thing like.
It's not his mentor. He just told him
Nah,
don't do superhero
Yo, they
movies.
definitely text.
That's all he said.
They
to
definitely
him.
call and because people were
He
comparing
called
him
him
to
and
like
he
the
said,
next
he called him
Leo.
and he said, "Yo, don't do superhero movies." That's it.
And don't do hard drugs.
And he said that
Really,
I'm gonna do
Leo?
Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
You mean the guy that's always coked out of his mind in every
He's
party?
not, I don't know Leo, so I don't know.
Leo, he's a big fan of
He said-
Snow.
He said, don't do
Blow?
hard drugs. From what I hear, he told Timothy, don't do superhero movies and don't do hard drugs.
As long as Timothy doesn't follow like the same like 25-year-old age cutoff thing that Leo is into, then we're good. But
That's a whole different thought.
see
That's
how
a whole
that
different.
develops.
This episode is brought to you by Gotham Sound. Whether you're working on a production or a podcast, Gotham offers top-of-the-line sound equipment to meet your needs. For our podcast, Gotham provided us with a couple of Shure SM7Bs, and they were very efficient. So when it comes to sound, always go Gotham.
So you talking about slow cinema, right? And that how that's been kind of like the style of filmmaking, the style of telling a story that you feel at this stage in your career that you feel really close to. What got you into making films? What was did it start with slow cinema, or was it like were you like one of those like you found like art house films and that kind of attracted you to it, or was it like what was it? What
What
your
brought you
introduction
to this
cinema?
game,
It was
homie?
kind of that. I mean, like I grew up kind of. I feel like a lot of other kids who grew up in America who just like loved Hollywood movies. I mean, I was a sci-fi fan from like the jump.
And you were always in DC, like growing up?
Yeah, I grew up born and raised in DC. And yeah, like when I was younger, I was like, I'm still into Star Wars. Like it's still one of my like, I think it's the best franchise ever.
Bradley. What are you talking about? Like
Star Wars
We're talking
is-
about like
The
Star
original
Wars
trilogy?
Star Wars is the greatest.
The
cinematic
original trilogy,
franchise.
or are you talking about
The original
like-
trilogy.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, the original one. However, I do still like
I would
episode
debate.
3. It was very core to my
Revenge of
like,
the
childhood
Sith?
memories. Yeah.
Yeah,
That one's good.
same,
I like
same,
Revenge of the
I don't think it was
Sith.
good, but I grew up really
Yeah.
liking it.
As a kid, you loved it.
Yeah, I think it's the best one of the
When it
Lucas
starts-
of the prequel.
No, I remember. I
It has the
remember
best
I saw
fight.
it.
The fuck is Anakin and Obi-Wan
which,
fight?
Wait, Bradley, which I just
You
have
took her
I
away
think
from-
the
you
new
turned her
Star Wars
against me.
movies lack a good duel.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not really like into the newer ones.
Yeah, they
I
don't
haven't
have a
watched,
good
the
fight.
others.
Like it's
Yeah.
insane.
Newer
Anyways,
ones are way too CGI. And
Yeah.
You said that you liked Han Solo. When you said that was your favorite film
Let's
of 2018.
continue on, Bradley.
All right, go ahead,
Yeah. So sci-fi movies, DC being raised.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
continue
and then
on.
I mean, like the movie, I feel like that kind of really encouraged me to like have an interest in filmmaking was The Dark Knight, which I see y'all have a
Oh
poster.
yeah, arguably one of the
Like-
best movies of
well,
all
like,
time.
wait,
What
That's
happened,
what's
Chad? Your balls drop off? You see a guy like me.
He was like cheap wise guy with a cheap suit. He's not the problem.
You want to know? You bought it. I want
Enough
to hear
with the
proposition.
cloud.
The problem is
Let's wind the clocks back.
the problem is
All right,
the
we got-
cops tracking our
Yeah, we're gonna go off. This is actually the first time we barely talked about like your come up and talked more about movies and shit, which is fun. I mean, it's always a good time. But yeah,
No, it's
so I
great,
said
great.
like, yo, we just follow the riff.
Yeah,
and, yo,
yeah,
It's crazy that your favorite Batman movie though is Batman Forever.
Shut
Anyways,
the
go
fuck
ahead.
up, yo. Crazy.
Is that
yo.
real?
No. Fuck.
I just had to confirm.
You like what's that one with the fucking Frost guy with Arnold? That's
Oh,
fucking
Batman,
Mr. Frost.
no, Batman and Robin.
Yeah, that's your fucking favorite movie.
When he shows up as the gorilla?
Michael Keaton was a good
Really?
favorite.
Because it's crazy that when I came to your crib, you have literally the Mr. Freeze like poster on your door.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyways, you were saying
Those are great villains, though. Like
the thing with the all right, before we
Poison
tackle back,
Ivy.
the thing about those Batman movies, right, is that I like watching them now. I actually really think they were trying to go for more of the Adam West Batman, and if you can look at it from that point of view, you can actually appreciate those movies for what they are. because they are like the villain of the week. Even like the first Batman movie, it wasn't Michael Keaton in Batman, it was Jack Nicholson, then Michael Keaton. And then with the second movie, it was like Danny DeVito, then Michael Keaton.
Those Adam West ones took me back. I remember like I was really into those for a while.
And the Joel Schumacher, like the terrible Batman famous one, the Mr. Freeze, those are actually very much in the zeitgeist of the Adam West ones, and Nolan just kind of took it and was like, wait a second, they're focusing way too much on the villains. Let's make...
I think what I also really appreciate about The Dark Knight, like, because I've been rewatching the Batman animated series, which I was like,
so good.
I was so into that
so
one as a
fucking
kid.
good.
And I felt like I really loved the darkness that they lived within for that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think with The Dark Knight, even with like the recent Batman movie, like just living in, like leaning into that darkness, I feel like is something that superhero movies oftentimes try to like stay away from somewhat, but you can't with that character. Like you can't with Batman, because it's just like it's part of who like
because
that universe is.
Applying the dark element to these comic book movies there's a fault to it. But I think because Batman is just inherently like a dark character, the Matt Reeves one, what he did was he just elevated the comic world of it. He elevated something that Nolan didn't touch upon, because Nolan was more interested in just focusing on a guy with a dark past, a guy dealing with dark people, a guy dealing with this idea of, can justice be won without having to lose sense of self, right? And then the Reeves one, which is what's interesting about the Reeves one, is that it's much more visually in tune with that theme, meaning that it really goes out of its way to make us see it, to really make us see the brute that is in Bruce Wayne. And then the animated series too touches upon that. And what's interesting too is that David has said that the animated series is a hoax and that it's for
That's crazy. This whole podcast is just you fucking making claims about me. Is all false,
like
ladies and gentlemen.
Fake
False.
What you would say, sorry, Stalin.
We're gonna decline.
Yeah, I feel like that's my issue with superhero movies nowadays. They're too like, they try to be too optimistic, and I feel like a person that's a real hero, or a real individual that becomes a hero, someone that does have to confront darkness and doesn't let it corrupt you. You know,
That's
and I feel like that's what was shown. Like that's why Spider-Man is like so great, the original ones, because they really show like the things that he's going through. It's like his uncle passes away, he's a college student, he's broke, like he has everything stacked up against him, and if he revealed who he is as Spider-Man, he could definitely make bread, but he sticks to his morality and he's still a good person. Without him being like corrupted. And I feel like that's with the Dark Knight as well. Like I feel like it shows it really, really well. Like it's just real life and really.
And they're freed from the IP aspect of the comic book movies now. Even like the Batman, it was smart that they took out that Joker scene, because it's the only scene that really is like, let's not forget, this is like IP. Like it just tells a story. Like it tells a detective story. And now we know that with the sequel, it's probably, I don't even know what the sequel is going to be about, but like it just felt like a fresh take on a very redundant character, because they had the Cape Crusader series too on Amazon.
I'm gonna say this, two things. Number one, I fucking love Barry Keoghan. If you're listening to this, I fucking love you.
He's a good actor.
Like, yo, he's a great actor.
I just can't believe he fumbled to be
He was
crazy, right? They're broken up.
That's what I heard, but I'm not
Fumble.
sure.
not
What
a
a
good
fumble.
Not a good Joker.
What a fumble. But
not a good Joker.
It's a little exaggerated, but he still did. He did his part.
He literally did. Heath
Number
Ledger,
two?
but like on crack. Like.
Number two, I think the Riddler, Matt Reeves' Riddler, I can't even say it, is my favorite villain after that guy right
No,
there. After
no. Wait, was he in the movie? He was like, no.
Nah, you gotta.
He was
I'm not gonna lie though.
Yo, he sunk the city.
Have you seen?
He fucking did it. He said, "Fuck you, I'm sinking this bitch." And I'm gonna
Buddy,
make
have you
seen
seen the Penguin? The show.
No, I haven't
It's actually,
even watched it.
I'm not
I
gonna
like
lie,
it.
it's actually really good. Like
It's
it's
good.
a good follow up to the movie.
Uh-huh.
Like I think the
It's good. It's
the
very
Penguin
good.
as a villain after you see the Riddler and the Batman is a really good like follow up, and I hope they include the Penguin more.
I
in
love
Batman
Colin
2.
Farrell.
He's
Yo,
so
he's
great
the
in
man.
it.
You know they filmed
Yeah,
it here
he's
in
so
New York?
great.
Yeah.
The Penguin.
Oh wow.
Colin Farrell's become like, his career is so interesting because he's no longer like he was a heartthrob, and then he did Alexander, and then that failed, and then he became this character actor. Like
My favorite movie
he just
is-
started doing character actor roles, and then in Bruges.
I love him in
Yeah,
Bruges.
and
My favorite movie of Colin is Phone Booth.
Yeah, he's really good in
fucking
phone
love-
booth.
Who did
Also,
Tony
Joel
Scott?
Schumacher, Batman
Oh.
Forever, Batman.
Oh, that's the same director. It's not
Same
Tony
director.
Scott. It
No,
felt
it's-
like a Tony
no,
Scott.
No,
movie.
it's not. It's Joel
You've
Schumacher.
seen Phone Booth?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you need to watch Phone
It all
Booth.
takes place
I
in
do
one
love
phone
Tony
booth in
Scott,
Times
though.
Square.
Yeah.
So good.
Basically,
So good,
Hitman calls him in the phone booth and it says, "Yo, if you leave this phone booth, I'm gonna kill you, and you need to just listen to everything I tell you right now." And
It's a good performance.
and then it's like a whole thing. That Forrest Whitaker's in it.
The editing,
it's fire.
the editing plays a
Yeah.
big part into the film because it does take
what a
place
good fucking movie.
Yeah.
on the phone
But
booth.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about Bradley
Yeah.
a little bit. So I'm so sorry
Yeah,
we
so
kind of
sorry.
went off here, but
You were saying the
You
Dark
were saying
Knight
about Hollywood
Dark
movies.
Knight.
You saw the Dark Knight, and you were like, "Wow, I gotta
saw
make
The Dark
movies."
Knight, and I was like 11 when it came out.
Yeah.
And I was just like obsessed afterwards with like behind the scenes videos and like YouTube
Yo, same.
and stuff because it was like also when YouTube was kind of
when they dropped that 1 hour 30 minutes behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
I have the book.
I
I have
watched it
the
like numerous
I have the
times.
making of the book.
I would come. It was like bookmarked. And I would come back to it like
I would come back
repeatedly.
It's fucking awesome.
And I think it was at that point when that was the first time I was like aware of my interest in like the craft of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Of like the being on set, how they do stunts, and just like the actual just what goes into like essentially just taking the puzzle pieces and gathering them and putting them together in like the edit like later on. And so then like I was just really into just like making stuff at home with like my friends. I got into like making stop motion like little films and stuff. I had like Windows Movie Maker.
Yeah.
And
I feel like every
do all that.
sorry to cut you off, but I feel like every filmmaker kind of starts that way because in elementary school I started with like stop motion as well.
Yeah.
Like little
because it's just like you have like a little like digital camera or whatever at the time.
Yeah.
And you have like your toys or something, and then
Yeah,
you're just like
like-
fucking around with them. Like I had like these like a collection of race cars because I'm like I've always been into like motorsports.
Yeah.
And I would do like stop motion like Mad Max race
Oh, that's
sequences like
fire.
throughout my house or something. But yeah, and then like I would make like little films with like my friends, with my cousin, and then got away from it for a while when I was like getting more into like journalism and like writing and everything. And then that led me to like studied public relations in college because I remember I went to this like journalism camp thing that my journalism teacher in high school told me to go to. And I was just talking to like one of the journalists, and they had like people who work for like Washington Post and New York Times, like CNN reporters and stuff there and stuff. And they're like, "Oh yeah, you're not going to make any money as a journalist." And I was like, "Oh, let me do PR instead then," because it was still kind of similar. Yeah. And so I studied that in college, but by the time I was getting to like the end of school, I was just back into picking up a camera again and like making stuff. And then moved to New York after I graduated. I worked at a PR agency for like 3 months. And by that point, I was still already aware that I wanted to do something video related or film related. So I was like PAing when I could. I like was emailing a bunch of like cinematographers in New York and just filmmakers trying to like get opportunities to get on set and learn.
Just hustling, bustling.
Yeah, exactly. And then I quit my PR agency job and was just doing PA stuff for a minute and like doing that, got into gripping through there.
You did G&E, right, for a little bit?
For a hot second, yeah.
Hot second,
because I was like always just shooting a lot.
Yeah.
And so like, even throughout all those like times of like crewing, I was still like in Facebook groups trying to find short films.
Local
to, like, shoot
Zero
stuff
Heroes,
with.
you remember those?
Local
and
Zero
shit?
Heroes,
Yeah.
I was on the New York NYU Tisch call, like crew call thing, and so I was like, that was kind of my film school, like outside of any of the like the self-teaching I was doing and stuff, but it was just like shooting projects for NYU students, for like Columbia grad students and stuff, and those were kind of like the beginnings. But yeah, it was just like it all comes back to like a love for film, and I think your question was about like what got me into like slow cinema and just other forms. And so like obviously I didn't study film in college, but I did take like some electives that were like film classes. And like senior year, I took this film history course. And I went to school at Virginia Commonwealth in Richmond. So like our film like class or whatever was in this like theater, because like Richmond is a city and VCU is just like downtown Richmond.
Yeah.
And it was just like this theater that was like opened up in like I think even like the late 1800s or something, and then it just been bought by the school, gutted, and they used it to just like do like performance classes and other stuff, but then also to have this film class. And a lot of people took the elective just to go and sleep. because it's just like it's just movies and stuff. But I'm sitting there just like thoroughly engaged with like everything.
Enthralled by like everything.
Yeah, it was like the first time I ever heard about like French New Wave, or like got introduced to like Polish cinema and like films from these other countries, like Brazilian cinema as well. And I think that kind of like opened my eyes to just like different methods of like visual storytelling and the ways of like using film as a medium that had been so different from what I was accustomed to from just like watching Hollywood movies, which I still love. Like I still love the scale of a Hollywood movie. Like another film I loved this year that I didn't mention was Twister. Like Twister's too.
Twisters.
I'm gonna say I actually had fun watching that.
Yeah, because like I have this thing. I love like 90s disaster movies.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite genres. It's like my comfort cinema. Is like
Day
the
After
Twisters, or just like stuff
Independence Day and shit.
Independence Day,
Fucking
exactly.
yeah.
And so it's like that genre. I feel like I really wanted to come
didn't
back
like
in full
Independence Day?
force.
Let him talk.
Yeah, let's not go down that route.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask you for in terms of real quick. I think it's really cool to. Like, I don't understand. This is not an attack on like anybody, but like I don't understand film people who only like a specific kind of film. I feel like the beautiful thing about movies is that you can like your popcorn flicks, you could like your Twisters, and you can also like your Band of Outsiders. You know, like you can like your Fury Road, which have you seen Fury Road? Yeah. Fury Road's like one of the best movies ever made. I love that movie. But you can love Fury Road, and then you can also really like Mr. Deeds. I don't know. Fucking Big Daddy something. I don't know.
Mr. Deeds, the one with the penguins?
Big Daddy, more so Big Daddy. I was gonna, but question for slow cinema. Let me throw some names at you. Do you know this director, Salomon Ligthelm? He's Taiwanese. He did a film called Goodbye Dragon Inn, Rebel of a Neon God, and he did Stray Dogs and another movie that's very, very like in the hone of slow cinema called Days.
I've heard of Days, but I haven't seen his films though.
I watched it one day I was editing, and it's literally just like the frame. It's like 10-minute frames of a guy of two different men just doing stuff. Like one's sitting down, like looking at the pool. The other guy is like cleaning his house. The other guy is like looking out the window. And I'm like watch it, and I'm thinking like this is like an interesting form of cinema because it seems easy to film it. But it actually is like, it's so like the actors. I was watching some behind the scenes stuff how they're doing it. They have to like go into a place and it becomes more meditative. And then I'm looking at it as a viewer of like, okay, I'm not gonna like really appreciate this if I watch it at any moment. But watching the moment I watched it in, it made me like get into their zone of whatever it was they were thinking about. And then I started to do the work. And I feel like people who are afraid of slow cinema are afraid of the work that they have to do as an audience, because some of these films aren't like they're interactive in that sense. Or even a film like Yi, like the Edward Yang director, the Bright Summer Day, like 3-hour films, kind of epic movies the way they're shot, but they're still and they're very focused on like their surroundings and people dealing with like personal crises. I highly recommend it if you have Criterion to check this guy's stuff out, because they're really cool. It's like Asian cinema has such a cool way of touching on every genre that I think they're the best. I think they're the best in terms of filmmaking.
Yeah, no, for sure. So.
Or even like the Japanese director, what's his name, Ozu?
I don't fuck with Ozu.
Yes, because you don't like good films.
Did he make Tokyo? He did Tokyo Story, right?
Yes,
Ozu's so slow. Like I'm
like
bored.
Kurosawa,
You like Ozu?
Yeah, but I feel like when you
I think you're afraid. I think the reason why you don't like his films is because you're afraid
I'm
to
falling
touch.
asleep.
I think you're afraid to touch the truth. Yeah. His films are about truth.
Yeah, I feel like when you mentioned like a still frame and just like slow pacing, that's like the immediate thing that came to mind.
I think the thing I admire the most about it is like, I mean, there's a lot you can do with it.
Yeah.
But I think I admire like the intention.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you've made a choice and you decided to commit to a choice, because I think that's something that filmmakers can oftentimes like get away from. Because something I've been thinking about like this year is like there's the philosophy of like you make a film 3 different times. When you write it, when you shoot it, when you cut it. And
that's a good point.
I find that like sometimes when philosophy. Like, I mean, I'm speaking as a DP, where it's like in the process of shooting the movie, a director may kind of like second guess if they're making the right film. And so they might be like, oh, let's do like a lot of coverage, for example. And so we can have a lot of different options of where we can take this in the edit. rather than like, let's commit to this thing. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that just like as an artist, you have to be like more open to making mistakes and like trying something, it not working. And then like if you're on set maybe and it's like it's not worked, then all right, how can we like try to problem solve and find another thing to make this work?
Yeah.
If it doesn't resonate with the audience, obviously that's like the biggest fear.
Yeah.
But that's also like why you prep so much and why you have all these conversations and why you trust your actors, you trust the material, you trust the project that you decided to say yes to. And so I think something about slow cinema that I really admire is just that intention of like, we're going to commit to this idea, this method of filmmaking, this method of storytelling, and then kind of playing within that world and seeing like how we can maybe even use the fact that we've decided to slow the pace all the way down and maybe not have music for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So that when you get to the climax of the film, you're like, this is the first time we're going to hear music, or this is the first time we're going to do this other thing with the camera, and it means more because it like, I think it comes back to that just intentionality of like, things should mean something when you do them within filmmaking, within cinema, of like, if I'm going to move the camera, it's for a reason. If I'm going to pan, it's for a reason. If I'm not, it's for a reason. And I think that's just something that like can be such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
I think about like Ansandi, for example, of like, it's such a slow film and then it just builds up this tension.
Yeah.
And then when it breaks, like I'm literally sitting there, like the moment that she gasps in the film, like I sit there for a minute, I'm like, why did she get, oh shit. And then it's like all the realizations of like everything else had been kind of building up throughout the film, like hit you at one time because of this commitment and this intention. So.
Well, when someone comes to you for a project, what are your like first like initial thoughts? Oh, do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? Is this right for me? Yeah. Aside from money, obviously we all know we gotta make income here. But like, talk to me a little bit about that.
I mean, well, for one, I think that like when it comes to narrative, particularly because I haven't done a feature yet, it's like all just shorts. It's never about money because it's like I'm not making money on a short. I don't think any of us are. Yeah. I think it really is just like, when I read the script or when I read the treatment, like, do I find something interesting about it? Is it like unique? Is there something maybe that I haven't done before that I want to try? Are there themes within it that are kind of like personally things that I'm like interested in exploring? I think those are like the grander ideas. Oftentimes it's just like, oh, this is a director who I like really like and I want to work with. Mm-hmm. I really like the script and resonate with it, or it's a producer I really like and want to work with and stuff. So yeah, it can be like a variety of different factors.
Do you feel like there are things that do you gravitate towards, like themes and stuff, or individuals, I guess, that you gravitate, or do you like a philosophy I have in business specifically is that I like to keep myself open-minded. Yeah. There's no such thing as a bad idea until you see that it's a bad. Well, let me rephrase that. There are bad ideas, but but you got to throw stuff sometimes, and you got to try new things. Be very open-minded, and then maybe you'll fall in love with it. Maybe it hits really well. Is there something like that you kind of look at, or do you feel like you have there are things that I don't want to ever.
There's stuff I don't want to do, but I think it's similar. Like I'm very open-minded, and it's like if something about it jumps out at me, then I'll be more like, and just even I want to have a conversation at least, and just sort of see what like the director's ideas are, if they line up with like kind of what I was thinking about, if they present new ideas that I hadn't thought about that I'm intrigued by. But I mean, like I think just some like themes, for example, I'm like interested in like family, particularly like kind of broken family. I mean, some elements of trauma and stuff, but like to a degree. I think like I also love a dark comedy, which is like also different from like broken family, but it can be kind of within that world where it's like, oh, we're gonna take like, one, because I think I just like darker like images, and that's sort of how I think about things, which sounds like very emo, but
every great character has trauma. From Tarkovsky to Paul Thomas Anderson, where one can apply a mix of comedy and a mix of like seriousness into something that's about trauma versus someone that I'm gonna do like a very godly like observation of like what a family dynamic can look like. Yeah. Or even a movie like Fury Road, where I would even argue that's a movie about family trauma. Yeah. But it's done with like a crazy set of amount of fucking balls and vision. I don't even know.
And I think like another kind of themes too that are interesting to me are like I'm really interested right now in religion because I grew up, like, I went to Catholic school from like 4 years old until I graduated high school. And I was baptized Catholic. I myself am like not.
You've done like your first
Christian
communion and like
necessarily.
confirmation.
I did the same. Yeah, I went to Catholic school
Yeah,
too.
and I mean, it kind of
for a
like
few
it ended up
years.
phasing me out of Catholicism, and it was like not just my thing.
Too much
But I
guilt.
think like the relationship of like people to the church,
Yeah.
to like whatever church it is that they go to, or, like the relation of themselves to like their faith and kind of their spirituality is something I've been interested in. So like I did a short in North Carolina in June, and it was like one of my favorite scripts have been sent. It's my friend Cameron Clay who directed it, and we were shooting everything on 16, but it was like this period project. So immediately I was drawn to it. I was like, oh, it's set in like the 60s.
What's the name of the project?
Jesus is Coming.
Jesus is coming.
Jesus
right.
is coming to take the church away.
Oh, that's
Is
the name of the
full
movie. It's
of the
out?
movie. Not yet.
Not yet. It's doing the festival run?
Well, no, we're in post on it.
Oh, okay. So it's in process.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it was just like, it's set in the 60s. It's set in like rural North Carolina. So there's also kind of like this undertone of like just like being black in the South, because it's an entire black church congregation. There's like alien abductions that are factored into it.
Wow.
But then it's all around this church congregation. And so it's like, on the one hand, yeah, you can look at it from this perspective of like, oh, this is like an alien movie. But it's also like a conversation about like angels and like higher like power or higher beings and everything, and then like heaven and hell and kind of those sorts of like ideas and bigger concepts. So it can be like a variety of different things. I think there's like, I'm pretty open-minded to anything, but sometimes there's like a couple hard no's, but not much. Not many.
There's always a few hard notes sometimes.
Can you tell us about like your journey to your ASC status? Like what's that been like for you?
Well, I'm not ASC.
Oh, you're not.
No.
ASC mentee.
That's like hopefully
Mentee.
like 30
Oh, yeah.
years away.
Okay.
You never know. Maybe 5 to 10.
Okay.
ASC. What's the term? It's ASC.
So I'm in the
Vision.
the ASC Vision mentorship.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
last year I was one of the.
I got that
ASC
wrong. Sorry.
Bradley Credit was ASC. He wouldn't be here.
I would still pull up. I'm
Very
just-
good.
Yeah, I was
I'm-
saying you never know.
Yeah, I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah, no, that started because
You were
last
like
year I was one of the ASC Rising Stars, along with like a few other just like really talented people, and that kind of encouraged me to just try out the mentorship program because I had kind of highlighted it as something I wanted to do at some point. Because I think it comes back to just like not having gone to film school and like having gotten so much from mentorship and from people who were willing to just share information with me. So yeah, I applied this year. I got selected. Was paired with a great mentor, Pete Consul, ASC.
Pete who?
Pete Consul, ASC.
What kind of movies?
So
has he done?
currently he's shooting Fargo. He did House of Cards for a while.
Oh, hell yeah.
Bunch of commercials.
Fargo's great.
But yeah, it's just like, and he's just a really nice person, like just really great human. So yeah, it's been cool because it's like, whether it's been being able to talk to my mentor or being able to like talk to the other mentees and kind of like share our own experiences with each other, it's been nice.
So what is that process? You guys meet once every few weeks and talk about like what's going on with you, and he kind of gives you like a little bit of advice here and there. Like,
Yeah, it's like, I think for everybody it's different, and a lot of it depends on kind of the relationship you have with your mentor, how available they are, because obviously it's like,
True,
you can imagine an ASC member is probably going to be pretty busy. But yeah, so like he and I will text or have like phone calls. I got to visit him on set a couple months ago and just sort of like sit with him in the DIT tent and just like watch him work, ask questions and stuff. But yeah, so it's like a case by case sort of thing. But for me and him, it's like we just kind of talk when we can, essentially. If I have questions and
Is there like something that you learned from them that you were like, whoa, like I never thought of it like this way? Like it really changed your perspective on cinematography, or like whether philosophical or like technical wise, that you feel like you wouldn't have gone otherwise if you weren't part of the mentorship?
A lot of stuff has been like more career oriented. So sort of like kind of my own kind of questions and concerns about like the path, I think has been maybe one thing.
Yeah.
In terms of just like the long-term perspective, where I'm like, okay, if I'm looking at somebody who is making work that I admire and he's been doing it for nearly as long as I've been alive, and like knowing that I want to see longevity in my career, and I'm at that point where it's like I've been doing it for about 5 or 6 years, and like when I'm hitting certain like roadblocks or obstacles or whatever, and it's maybe discouraging in terms of like, oh, is this like normal? Am I supposed to be like dealing with this or whatever? Then being able to like talk to somebody who's like, oh yeah, like I dealt with that too, but you just have to like keep pushing forward or handling things a certain way. Technically, I don't know, like some filtration stuff and like kind of thoughts of like diffusion and things of that source. And like I think one thing that was interesting was when I went to visit him on set, he had this bounce set outside and like 218Ks going into it.
That was a big job.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's like a big like Netflix show, I think it was. And I was talking to him about like his idea for it because it was like going into this like, restaurant. Yeah, it was here in New York. It's like it was in Manhattan, and it was just because he had gone in when they scouted and he saw like the sun bouncing off of a window in an apartment across the street coming into the restaurant, and he was just like wanting to recreate that. So even like that thought of like when I go into like a location scout and like maybe there's something that I like being open, like keep my eyes open to like things that are happening on the scout within the space that I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Let me pocket that and like talk to my gaffer about it, take a photo of it and talk to my gaffer about it. Of like, yo, I want to recreate this.
Sometimes it's not even about creating. Sometimes it's just like pushing. Yeah. What is already there.
Yeah, or just making it consistent.
Yeah,
I mean, it's as simple as, which is essentially like what it was. It was just like, yeah, he saw something because of like the certain time of day, the certain time of year that he like scouted that location, because it was like months back that they had looked at it for the first time. And they're just being like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. I want to try to like have that when we're shooting on the day.
It's also nice when you have two 18Ks and a big 12-5 bounce.
But I mean, that was another thing too. Is just like just watching the crew work and just seeing how like quickly things are able to happen. But because the only reason things are able to happen that quickly is because of how you prep.
Yeah.
And the people who you're like hiring and everything, the conversations that you're having, the language of like that you're building up over the course of weeks and weeks of shooting, where everybody gets into a flow of like how you do things.
It's always interesting in like if you're doing like a long form project, especially even if it's just like a 3 to 4 days, or even like if you're doing a big feature for a few weeks to even a few months. The first day is always the toughest day. No one's in their rhythm. Yeah. Everyone's kind of learning. People are learning where the gear is. People are learning where the set is. People are learning what to do, what's the schedule, and people are learning the personalities. And it's always interesting after day 2, day 3, and then eventually you find this rhythm. Yeah. And it's one of the most beautiful things on being a part of a set. You find this rhythm, this camaraderie, this wave. It's like you don't even have to speak it. You just kind of like, oh, I know what you want. You want to light this scene. I know exactly what you're thinking. And then you just look at each other. You're like, boom, pop, 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 pop.
Yeah. And I think that even comes with like, I've taken more appreciation this year of that within collaborations, where it's like just having people who I work with often who are like, we're kind of building up a shorthand and like an understanding with each other. And so then it's like you can walk into any kind of situation like on a new project, but you're like, oh, I'm working with like the same first AC that I've been working with for like the last few months, or the same gaffer I've been working with for the last few months. And you get an understanding of like how they work. They get a better understanding of how you work. And then you can kind of like have that, because there's always going to be these things that pop up on a set when you're shooting that are just like within kind of like that first 2 days or whatever, where you're just trying to get a sense of like how people work and how the set's going to flow, and rhythm, like finding that rhythm. Yeah. So it's like when you have people who you work with regularly who you've built up a rhythm with, it's easier then to like go into certain situations and go on other projects and be like, okay, we can, like, this is a new rhythm, but we already have our own rhythm. We just got to like sync up with like what's going on here.
What do you look for in a director?
Perspective, intention, like somebody who has a strong understanding of like what they're trying to say, even if they don't know necessarily like how they're gonna say it, but if there's at least like the idea of like, I know what I want to try to communicate, or like the story I'm trying to tell, then it's like I just feel like you can have better conversations to get a greater understanding of the project. And then when you're like on set, there's just like, it just works smoother, I think, in terms of like being able to, if an idea is not working, you can come back to like, okay, well, we know like what are you trying to say? And if they have a strong understanding of like what it is, then you can like, all right, well, how about this idea or whatever.
Would it be fair to say then that like you're the kind of DP that would have like these kind of like in-depth conversations even before production or even between?
I prefer to.
There's directors that they know the vision and they know the material. You have other directors who don't know the visual language. They just know that this is how they saw a scene, and then they kind of rely on you to craft the technical aspect of it, right? And then there's directors like Terrence Malick who comes in. It's like, I don't have a script. I wrote sonnets. This is what I feel. Like have you worked with someone like that? It's like I only have words on a wall, and I just wide and let's follow them.
Yeah.
Bradley, I want you to make this just look pretty. Can you make that?
Yeah,
for me?
how would you operate with a filmmaker like the latter? Because I feel like that's the one that's probably that will evoke the most
frustration.
No, that will frustration, but probably the more like you have more liberty as a filmmaker to be like, you know what? All right, we're gonna try this.
It's gonna create more freedom. For
you have more freedom. You have
like
more time
free.
to make a discovery, but at the same time, you're rushing through time and you're dealing with a crew that's like, "What the fuck did he just say? I don't got a script." He would lose his mind. He'd be like, "I'm sorry, what?"
Yeah,
he would
have not been able to work with Wong Kar-wai because they would write the script as they were shooting it.
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't even have a script. Like they would write the day of.
I'd
and
be
they would
like,
change stuff.
fuck.
Thin Red Line.
They would throw some
Thin Red Line famously cut out like 15 great actors and reshaped the entire thing. The actors went to go see it. Like, what the fuck?
I mean, even like
Where's my scene?
even Apocalypse Now, like he was writing it as they were shooting it.
Yeah, he had actors pretending to be decapitated, and they were like their heads were like hanging here for hours, and they're like, he said what? Wait, they're cutting out the scene. What scene are we doing? Like, I guess like how would you if you've already worked with people like that, and if so, like, what's your approach in that end for something that crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like it comes down to conversations that you have like with the director ahead of time to get a sense of like the ideas and like the themes that they're trying to like explore. And then you have a conversation with your crew as well, just to kind of like be like, yo, look, here's the deal. This is like how this director likes to work. This is how this set is probably going to go. And just like being upfront and honest about that. And then just, are you down to do that? Because not everybody is. It's tough. I wouldn't say it's like the thing I find myself in often. I kind of think that like that middle example is kind of where I'm generally sort of like working. And,
like where you're they
like
don't know what the
visual. It's like, because we can find that together. That's like the joy. Part of the joy for me is like if they have an idea of, they have a strong understanding of like how they want to tell the story or like the story that they have in their heads. And then I have my own perception from my own, like the way I interpreted the script, my own lived experiences, whatever. But then I also have like how I just think visually, and then we can kind of like mesh those ideas together. I think the latter example kind of makes me think of documentary a lot, which is like, I mean, documentary is something that I came up on, and that I still do often. And it's like you're walking into a situation where you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but you just have to find a way to cover it. So yeah, I mean, it's just like, that's part of the thing about the joy about being a DP is just like there's so many different kind of directing styles and ways of working that you find yourself coming across, different ways of telling story that you can find yourself like doing, and it just keeps it like fresh.
What's your relationship like with this director, Jeff
Wallace? Gold Boots?
Yes, because when I was looking at your work together, it seems like you both have a very, it feels very distinct. The framing feels very intentional. There's interesting stuff that we were talking about between Nickel Boys and certain moments where you left the camera hanging on a couch, the ground, and then you leave a lot of negative space. It feels very personal, also almost detached, like in the sense. But I guess like a working relationship like that, like what do you gain from him? What does he gain from you? How do you guys make that spark?
I mean, well, Jeff is one of my best friends, and we met through work. Like a few years ago, he was directing a music video, and then wanted me to come on to DP it. And we just kind of quickly got along. We had a lot of like mutual friends as well, because we went to like the same college in Virginia for a while, for some time, even though he was like a few years ahead of me. But yeah, we really click, I think, because we have very similar like taste in like what we like, in what we find interesting, what we find cool. And so it's like kind of with that sort of relationship with a director, it's like very easy to kind of like just present ideas and feel like validated in doing so, and just feeling very collaborative in that sense. And I generally am just like, whenever he sends me a script or a treatment, like I'm already into it. And so it's just like, then I can present some ideas of like, oh, here's what I think could be like cool for this, and like, what do you think? And then oftentimes like it might sync up, or he'll like throw me another idea that I'm like, oh, this is even more interesting. And then like kind of walking down that route with him. So yeah, I think it's like we have similar like visual tastes, but also just like from a thematic standpoint, we think about like similar stories and kind of like just like larger themes, like family. I think was like Hey Son was a lot about that, of just like a mother and son relationship, particularly a son who's pursuing like a career as an artist. And I think particularly like coming from like a Black family, there's like there's so many obstacles that you already have, like just growing up as like a Black person in America. And like our parents will then have like kind of, there's things that they hope for us, that they want for us, that are just like, that are different to talk about. And like there's kind of more of a concern of like, oh, are you going to be able to sustain yourself as an artist? Because there's just like this perception that like, oh, like what if it doesn't work out? Because there's like the starving artist idea and stuff like that. Yeah, I think like 2 come to mind, or no, actually like 3. Like Khalil Joseph, Salomon Ligthelm, and like Miles J. I think those are like 3 directors whose their styles have always like really resonated with me the most.
Who's the second one?
Salomon Ligthelm.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think they're just like the way that they think visually and the way that they like tell story is something that always is like resonates the most with me. Especially like Khalil Joseph and Miles J, like kind of they have 2 different styles that are very distinct, but that are both things that I'm always drawn to. So yeah.
What's
Hell
next?
yeah.
What are you doing next? What's the next project you're on?
We did a music video recently, me and Jeff Goldboots. So that should be coming out in like top of January.
For who?
For our friend Zay. He's a great rapper.
Do you like music videos?
Yeah, I do. I haven't done like a lot. I'm trying to get into doing some more, just because it's like I had done a lot like early on in my career, and then kind of gotten away from it, and I'm trying to come back to it, and just like really finding the music videos and like the ideas that are fresh and feel like the most just like fun and unique to me. Just being able to try things. But yeah, I think that's like the joy about music videos, is just being able, there's no rules. It's not like narrative where you're kind of, we're trying to build a more structured way of storytelling, at least for the majority of the projects that I'm working on. Mm-hmm. And so music videos is just like a nice like break away from that, where you can just like throw shit at the wall.
So what's 2025 looking like for you? What's the goals that you want? And I guess to wrap out, since we are at the end of 2024, looking into the next year, like, yo, what are we manifesting for you?
Yeah. I think 2025, the biggest thing is just building momentum and just like continuing to do it. I would really love to shoot a feature in 2025. We'll see if it happens. Like there's scripts that I've read, and it's just a matter of like, will they like be able to manifest next year? So yeah, definitely that. I want to do more music videos as well.
Oh,
just
wow.
kind of like, just mess around. I think the bottom line is just I want to shoot more on film. Just like as much as possible.
You and everybody else, my friend. Hell yeah.
So yeah.
But yo, the film is the most authentic medium.
I just have like a fridge full of short ends, and I'm just like, I need to use these.
Yeah.
So if anybody has some ideas and they want to shoot on 16, let's do it.
Last thing before we wrap up, there's something on your IG. I can't pronounce the name.
Galdem.
Galdem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that is that like you're a part of them now?
Yeah.
Like
so me and my friend Amari, we started Galdem like kind of last year. We had just started shooting like these little short scripts with each other, and we just kind of been building it out. Like Jeff is a part of Galdem now. A few of our other friends who are like writers, producers. Our whole thing is just like kind of, we do generally tend to explore like darker comedies, just like being able to talk about some themes in a humorous way, everything kind of has like we're trying to keep it like as ethnic as we can, just from like kind of different realms of like just our backgrounds, whether like Omari is from the Caribbean and so like he's bringing that into it, or if we're just talking about themes of like blackness, or Giorgio, who's one of our like writers and directors, is Filipino, and so like kind of bringing in those ideas and just like kind of finding funny ways to talk about our cultures and things that we like resonate with and things that like somebody can watch and be like, oh, like my friends are just like that, or like I had that experience before, my family's just like that, but being able to like do it in like a humorous and like fresh way. So yeah, just trying to continue to build that out. We have like another slate of like, we call them flashes. So it's like the 5 flashes that we'll have another kind of few coming out. Hopefully also doing like our first like longer short film in 2025. Yeah. So yeah, just trying to build it up. It's like and the music video that's coming out with Jeff is also a Galdem project.
Yo,
so.
I love it. I love when like, you know, peers of mine are like trying to like create new entities and making new like, you know, projects, and you see them blowing up a little bit. It's always great to see.
Yeah, no, it's just fun to be able to like create and just like make the stuff that we want to see. That's really what it's about at the core.
Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram, Bradley Credit DP, bradleycredit.com is my website. Also Bradley Credit on Vimeo. So yeah.
Hell yeah. All right.
Thank you, Bradley, for coming
thank you
by.
for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was a fun conversation.
This was really fun.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
All right,
guys.
Catch you later.